Hello. Episode 14 today. And I wanted to let you know something. It's going to be a great one. Okay. So, I had breakfast with a pastor the other day, and we were talking faith, we were talking my testimony, the whole shebang. It was awesome, great conversations. And we were talking fitness because I actually met him at the gym, and he was amazed. He was absolutely overjoyed with my process and how within 17 months I lost 82 pounds, completely changed my life, went from obese to fit. And he asked an important question, then he played devil's advocate with me a little bit, and it's something that I wanted to make a pod about because it's so... I couldn't answer his questions. I still can't answer them, so we're just going to rattle around the idea in my head right now, and we'll figure it out, okay? So, he said, all right, Jake, that's awesome. What was it in you that made that discipline happen? How did you do that? Because, you're obese, you've got to where you're at, you can fully acknowledge, take accountability that you got to where you're at because of you, your life, your decisions, your choices, all that. But what turned it on? What's that look like? And I said, man, here's what I think. I think discipline's a switch in your head. You just turn it on. One day you make that decision. Boom. Just like E.T. says. Discipline is staying consistent to the things you said you were going to do long after the mood that set it in is left. So I told him that's just how I see it, man. It's like, look, I decided I was going to be disciplined, turned it on, and then I've been disciplined ever since. And it's just been like that. And he said, okay, but here's the problem. I'm going to play devil's advocate here a little bit. Kind of funny hearing that from a pastor, right? But he's like, look, let's say I'm one of the statistical 95% of people that don't necessarily have goals. I don't think like that, right? So I don't think discipline's easy like that. And I was like, well, in my perspective, it's a perishable skill, right? If you practice it, you get better at it. If you don't practice it, it gets worse. We talked about this very recently, actually yesterday's episode, right? And he said, okay, sure, but the majority of people don't view it that way. Like, why are you willing? You're fat. You're here. You're a little mopey. Why are you willing to willingly make your days every day consistently harder when you're not, in the micro, you're not seeing any tangible yield for it. You're just having a harder life. You're purposely giving yourself a harder life. Why? Why would you do that? It's easier not to. And I was like, yeah, for sure. It definitely is easier not to. But the way I see it is I future cast. I look out to where are the decisions, choices, actions, and behaviors that I'm executing on today, now, on a daily basis, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. Where are those decisions and habits and patterns leading me to? And he goes, wait, you lost me again. Right? Because here's the problem. Most people aren't thinking like that. Most people don't even think about what they're going to do tomorrow. Most people are present, and they're, even if they're not in the present, they're in the past, dealing with fear from, traumas or things that they regret from the past. And this is when I brought up something Jim Rohn said to him. I said, well, discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. I'll say it again because it's really important. Discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. And what that means is regret stacks up. If you regret something in your past, you can't go back and change it, but you can continue harping on it. Discipline, okay, what are you going to lose out on discipline? A little bit of, in the early stages of forging that discipline, you'll get a little bit of FOMO. You'll see your friends going out and, quote, having a fun time, and you're missing out on that because you're locked in, you're being disciplined. Oh, big deal. But you're not going to regret that discipline over the long term after you do see those results. And he goes, okay, you're right. I agree with you. I do. However, again, what I'm saying here, and this is where we're getting to the conundrum that I couldn't answer, still can't answer, and we're going to talk about it. It's because he said, look, your message is plausible, and clearly the results you've made and the results I've made, I'm in fitness as well, I agree with you. I think that that's true. But you're only talking to people that are already on an intentional path, right? So you're talking to the 5%. You're talking to people that, yes, they may be positively impacted by your message, and they may hear that and it may invigorate them to do more and be more, but you're talking to people that are already set out on the path. You're not talking to the people that haven't made that decision or turned that fork in the road yet, right? And so, like, what is that? What turns the discipline on? Because if I don't believe discipline is something that's just a flip on the switch that you turn on and you're just dialed into it and you slowly craft that skill, I'm not going to really resonate with what you're saying, because it's very tactical, but it's also, pretty hard right? And I was like, okay, fine. But the results from my life show that what I'm saying is valid, right? Discipline being a perishable skill, focusing and practicing on discipline. Perhaps in the beginning, you're not necessarily the best at the discipline, but that's okay. That's why a program like the Live Hard program can help you establish that discipline, and then you won't come to regret it. And then if there are regrets in your past, right, you can leave those in the past. You can reframe the perspective on those. Or if anything, as you work to reframe those and have a more positive mind space about what's forged your character to the today to be better tomorrow, as you work to reframe that, you can actively focus on the now and putting better inputs in now, so that the future, you don't look back into what was now as the present or the past and say, I regret that, that, and that. So you cut the regrets off now. Stop making new regrets that you're going to be dealing with in the past. And now your future is going to look better, brighter, and bolder over time. This is a long-term game. We're not talking about 1 week from now you're going to have everything established. And he's like, okay, cool, awesome. I'm a minister for college-age students, okay? A lot of these people, they're on this path, they're partying, they're trying to find themselves, they really haven't established that yet. And so how does something like this in a message reach them? Because here's the problem, and this is where that term holier than thou comes in. When you try to tell them, hey, this way is what I've done, even if you do build that reciprocity and you're like, hey, I was obese back then, and so I had I had a worse starting place than you. Even if you build that reciprocity, that rapport, and then filter it in and then add scripture into that, what they hear is, I'm better than you. And here's where the scripture says, this is what you're supposed to be doing. You're not doing that, so you're not devout. And then it makes them fearful of the way, and they walk away, or they slow their trajectory, right? And I was like, you're absolutely correct, but I have a hard time empathizing with this whole, oh, boo-hoo, life's so hard for me and it must be easy for that guy. They don't have to go through the struggles I go through. And I was like, look, I can't think that way, because sure, I could think that way, but the problem with that then is that, like, I'm now allowing myself to buy into the negative from those defeating thoughts in my mind, aka the enemy, aka Satan, right? Flooding in these negative thoughts that you can then choose to buy into or not. You're the consciousness behind your thoughts. You're the awareness. You're a spiritual being having a human experience, okay? You're not all your thoughts. All your thoughts aren't relevant, and all your thoughts aren't from you, right? And so if you buy into this hubbubaloo that's defeating, low vibrational, and now you buy into these and you start operating on that thought basis, your output's going to be worse. You're going to have more regrets. You're going to live to be less, right? You're going to accomplish less, do less, and you'll just be in mediocrity. You'll be sunken in and dulled down around the edges to become menial, average, just middle of the pack, right? And I can't do that, because I seek to be a fisherman of men. I seek to show people through my actions, through my decisions, through my lifestyle choice and what I'm doing, that you can live a prosperous, fruitful, abundant life that's absolutely vivacious, full of all sorts of alacrity, while also being devout, disciplinarian, while being righteous, right? Those aren't two things that are separate. You can live with worldly things and be successful in the eyes of the world, have meritocracy, while still being a righteous individual. And that comes down to being disciplined and doing the things you say you're going to do. And if you're shooting for middle of the road, sure, you can achieve that with a little bit less inputs. But if you shoot for the top of the road and you actually buckle down into those new levels, those new habits, if you don't quit and you keep failing on your disciplines, but you keep working at them to get 1% better, 1% better, 1% better over a decade, and you haven't quit, you will get somewhere. Maybe not where your original vision was, but you'll be a lot closer. And then now that you're closer and you're still not quitting, you're still staying on that path, 1%, 1%, 1%, you're going to close that gap. You will achieve all those visions that you have set for your life that were bestowed on you by God for its achievement, so that God could use your hands, the overflowing abundance in your life, to bless others. Seeing what I'm saying? So it's kind of our moral obligation as Christians, as individuals of faith, to live a devout, righteous, and absolutely abundant, prosperous life, so that we can be the light of the world and guide people to also do the same by being the example. And he said, look, man, it's beautiful. I absolutely 100% agree with you. But we need to take it down a peg so that people that aren't yet on the path, that haven't even recognized, okay, there's this door I can walk through that leads to this other lifestyle outside of the life of sin that I've been living. They don't even yet know about the door. So when you're talking about all these esoteric concepts past the door, they don't even know how to get in the door. So you need to bring it back a little bit, right? Discipline. Where do I get it? How do I get it? It seems so out of reach for me. I don't have it, right? And he does have it, right? He's just playing the devil advocate in this scenario, this conversation we were having. And I said, look, I think it's this, and this comes directly from Layla Hermosi. When the pain of staying the same exceeds the fear of change, you will change for the better. I'll explain that again. I'll say it again, and I'll break it down. When the fear of change, the pain of change, exceeds the pain or fear of achievement, of change, you will change. So what does that mean? You're in a meager life. You come to recognize this isn't the life I want to be living, the life I want to be leading. I'm not headed towards anything that I deem as worthwhile, meaningful, giving me lasting fulfillment. These aren't the things I love to do. I am simply existing. I am going to an occupation I don't love. I actually disdain it, but I'm going there to get my paycheck so that I can continue to pay my bills, so that I can survive in this world. You have become what is effectively a tax slave, a wage slave, okay? And that's the majority of people this day and age. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to tell you, it's a harsh reality. That is the red pill in the Matrix series, okay? I've come to tell you the truth, Neo. What is the truth? The truth is that you were born into bondage. You are a slave, Neo. Talking about debt slavery, okay? We work until August before we get penny one, after all is said and done with all the taxes we pay. Look into it. Assume I'm lying. DYOR. Do your own research. Not financial advice. Figure this out. Understand these things. This is real world stuff. I'm an 8-year entrepreneur. I've been down this rabbit hole, okay? I've achieved a lot of crazy worldly things in my businesses. You can go look it up. I've been featured in major publications, okay? And so here's the thing, right? I said to him, look, I believe that I want to get back to talking about, explaining this from Layla Hermosi, right? When you're in this meager lifestyle and eventually you wake up and you go, I really don't love the path of where I'm headed. That's when you start future casting and looking into the future of where my habits leading me and how can I affect my inputs today to change my outputs tomorrow. And that is when you go, okay, I don't really know a lot about fitness, but I do know that it says in the Bible that your body's a temple and you should treat it as a temple, or else God will destroy it. And so I get one healthy body, so I should probably start focusing on that. So I don't know a lot about fitness, but I'm willing to invest time, energy, and attention into learning those things and then doing those things. That's when you start willfully putting yourself through hard situations, right? Doing ice baths. You start going to the gym and focusing, prioritizing your health, right? You start eating real food. Okay, you start reading labels and understanding the whole matrix of control when it comes down to what we're putting into our bodies and how that fuels the medical industry, because they're treating you for all sorts of ailments that you didn't necessarily need, and you generated them from the garbage compounds of chemicals that you were putting in your body that they called food, that was actually just poison with extra steps. So we're going down some rabbit holes here, but you'll get intentional when you decide, I don't love this lifestyle that I'm living and leading. I don't like where this path's taking me. And I am willing to have a harder, perhaps more dreary lifestyle today. And by dreary, I mean being locked in, super locked in, having DMOs, daily methods of operation, operating your entire life off of a checklist of tasks that are executive clerical work that will move the needle forward on the path you've chosen for your life. What you seek to attain, these are the daily action steps I need to take to get there. Okay. It can be dreary. It can be monotonous. It can be, I am grateful for this opportunity before me, and I would rather be doing this than anything else. But like today, I'm feeling a little bit low. I'm feeling the lull. I got to do these things again. Some of these micro tasks I'm doing, I don't really love to do, but I know they need to get done, so I'm going to do them. That takes a level of discipline that most people, by the way, I'm going to be very intentional about how I say this, because some people would say most people don't have. I'm not going to say that because I don't believe that. I believe everybody has it. It's a level of discipline that most people don't exercise. And because it's a perishable skill, they don't have that level of discipline in their current wheelhouse. It's not in their tool set right now. Because perhaps, let's break this down in like RuneScape, World of Warcraft terms, right? In an MMORPG. Perhaps that requires level 25 discipline, and because discipline is a perishable skill, right now in their wheelhouse, in their toolkit, they are only at a level 3 of discipline, so they can't execute on level 25 discipline because they haven't been pushing it, right? Maybe they got up to level 15 at one point in their life, but then it's perishable. It comes back down to level 3, so they're currently operating on a level 3 of discipline. They need level 25, right? Are you following the analogy? So here's the thing. I told him, look, man, perhaps it requires these individuals, these wandering generalities, because we talked about, how it's stated by Earl Nightingale. And I said, maybe it requires these wandering generalities to continually get their ego poked until they decide, okay, I'm willing to go down the path of finding out what it means to be a meaningful specific, and then to actually work to figure out if I have that capacity in me. Because newsflash, they do. You do. Everybody does. Nobody is more special than anybody else. People that appear more special than anybody else is just because they've been a meaningful specific. They've been intentional with their life over a longer period of time. That's what it is. That's what you're seeing. The light on them that you see, it's in you. It's just a perishable skill that your light's not really shining that hard because you haven't been watering it. Okay? Discipline. That's what this whole episode's about. Specifically talking about ministering to 19 to 22-year-olds in context of the conversation we were having. But, maybe that's not your subset, but also maybe you're 23 to 27 or older. It doesn't really matter. Maybe you're trying to figure out what a disciplinarian lifestyle looks like for you and what those check boxes are that you need to do on a daily basis to experience the fruits of your labor in a way that you love. That is an important thing. That is a great thing to invest your time, energy, and attention into, is to figuring out that, because that leads to your why. And then once you have your why, you have infinite vigor. You have infinite energy, because now you are getting up every day and operating on a I must do this. I seek to render useful service to my fellow man by following my passions. And then I expect God to use my hands, use the overflowing abundance in my hands to bless others. I expect that to happen. And so I put in the daily action steps to do that. And that is what I do. And why is that so awesome? It's because I'm not wishy-washy. I'm not over here, like when I pray, for example, I'm not begging God or being a hopeful without intention of, oh, well, if I could just please get this. No, I command it. This is what I want in my reality, God. This is what I am after. Show me. Open my eyes to the necessary actions and course that are required of me to have that. And then bada bing, bada boom, those doorways open up for me, and that's the life I live. Reality is so tangible, it's crazy, okay? You can truly live whatever life you want, but whatever you're asking for, there is a price to pay for it. Everything. There is a price attached to every ask. And if you're asking for a lot, you better be sure that price is gonna be high. That's just it. What price are you willing to pay to achieve the things that you seek to achieve? Obviously with God in mind, right? And that's an important one for a whole nother episode. You're not going to get very far ever in the world, and even if you do, it'll all be taken away from you without God. I can preach on that all day long. I've done that. The righteous man falls 7 times, gets up 8. I've built monumental, large-scale, globally recognized businesses several times, and every time my ego got out of check, and it was me, I did this, look at me, accolades, boom, I got rocked, and I'm back to ground zero. It happened multiple times. Why? Because I fell into pride, one of the 7 deadly sins, and I put all the credit on me instead of God. The reason I was given the success in the first place was to call back to God and say, God made this happen because God's using me as a vessel to affect positive change on the kingdom down here. Now I recognize that. I got a thick noggin. It took me a while to figure that one out, but I figured it out. And that's another thing about the discipline, right? Like I said, you're down the path for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, a decade. If you do not quit, you don't give up, you don't turn back around and go, oh, okay, you know what? It's just too hard. I'm just going to live the meager lifestyle that I was living before. If you don't quit and you continue going down the path to continue forging more divine alignment with the visions you have, that path will shift, it'll mold, it'll become more malleable, it will become more apparent, more evident where you're headed, what you're doing, what you need to do, who you need to be, and those things will align for you. Not immediately. I can't put a timeline on your process. I don't even know mine. I know what it is that I want to do, and I know that it will all come to pass. I just don't know when. All I know is I can focus on the inputs. I don't care about the outputs. I can focus on the inputs, and if my inputs are good consistently over a long enough period of time, the outputs will show up. It's so black and white. It's so binary. Do the things and you'll get the things. Don't do the things, you won't get the things. It all falls back to discipline. How disciplined are you willing to be? How many parties, events, networking, how many hangout sessions with your friends are you willing to miss in exchange for building your dreams, your tangible reality, the visions you see in your mind? Are you willing to sacrifice for them? Because that's part of the price. That's discipline. Close it out. I already said it. I want to say it again because it's really important. Jim Rohn coined it. The price of discipline weighs ounces. The price of regret weighs tons. It's just true. Anyways, I love you. I hope you have a wonderful, beautiful, blessed day. Keep winning. Keep growing. Keep glowing. Keep going.